Over the last 50 years, people of all walks of life were presumed missing or dead until one day a comet begins hurtling towards Earth, and for some reason this comet ends up slowing down and making its landing at Cascade Range in Washington state. This large ball of light explodes, and through the fog 4,400 people emerged, none of them having aged and having no memory of what happened to them since they've gone missing. On today's Flashback Friday, we're exploring the 2004 series, The 4400. You're listening to Utter Randomness Podcast. I'm Lulu, your host, and this is a Flashback Friday. Obviously, spoilers. So we are introduced to the National Threat Assessment Command, or as it's going to be commonly referred to as NTAC. It is a division of the Department of Homeland Security, and their main job is to oversee the return of the 4400. The lead team, which is the team that the show mainly follows, are consistent of Tom Baldwin and Diana Skouras. Now, the 4,400 are dubbed the returnees, and they are quarantined and even interrogated until they are released back into the world. Now, many returnees remained in Seattle, while others moved on either back to their home country, because they came from everywhere from around the world. And unfortunately, many had trouble readjusting back into their lives because some of them were missing for several months, while others were missing for up to 50 years. We find out that not only were the returnees returned, but a small number of the returnees began manifesting abilities such as telekinesis, telepathy, and even precognition. That is only a small example of the abilities that the 4400 came in possession of. For example, one of the returnees had the ability to heal, while another became pregnant between her disappearance and her return. We find out pretty quickly in the season finale of season 1 that the 4400 were not abducted by aliens, but by future inhabitants of Earth. Now, we've seen this sort of storyline redone again and again and again. But anyways, a person who was meant to be an abductee, Kyle Baldwin, yes, Tom Baldwin's son, he was meant to be a messenger of some sort. However, instead, he spent months in a coma because his cousin, Sean Farrell, who attempted to protect Kyle from being abducted, ends up being abducted himself. And we find out that the 4400 were returned to prevent and avert a catastrophe. By the second season, it is revealed that all 4400 have a neurotransmitter in their brains. This neurotransmitter is what actually gives the 4400 their abilities. The government, who feared the 4400 because of their abilities, began developing a neuroinhibitor to block the manifestation of abilities in the 4400. However, like everything the government sometimes touched in fictional shows, the neuroinhibitor only worked in a small fraction of the 4400, and a side effect actually began to show up, and the inhibitor actually caused a fatal immune deficiency. Kevin Burkhoff, he's a professor, was able to develop a vaccine of sorts so that the inhibitor could be removed from the 4400 because people were dying. The third season introduced the Nova Group, a terrorist faction made of the 4400. They were formed because of the inhibitor, cause and effect, and while the intention was to defend the other 4400, they eventually became a radical group carrying out several terrorist attacks against the government and the NTAC. In the third and even the fourth season, it's revealed that the people from the future were actually divided, and that only a certain faction who created the 4400 wanted to see the future changed for the better. The other faction opposed the 4400 and sent in their own operatives, which included Isabel Tyler and the Marked. Unfortunately, the exact motives were never revealed because the 4400 was actually canceled in its fourth season. Jordan Collier, a returnee, developed shots for the public which could allow the development of abilities like the 4400. Only approximately half of the human population can withstand these shots, while the other half died. The government outlawed the shots completely because it makes their appointed tasks more complicated, such as just overseeing the original 4400. Jordan Collier later forms the Promised City, an annexed part of Seattle. Mission was supposed to be, but we never find any of that out. Going into production on September 14th, 2000, American Zoetrope made 2 television deals, one with Viacom and the other with the Sci-Fi Channel. The 4400 was actually the only television series to come out of American Zoetrope because Viacom would split at 2006 into the CBS Corporation. In 2007, 3 months after the end of season 4, writer and co-creator Scott Peters announced because of the Writer Guilds of America strike, that was a huge thing in the early 2000s. And unfortunately, actually, a lot of shows ended up being canceled because of this Writers Guild of America strike, or not even canceled, that some of the episodes that came out of this were not up to par in many people's opinions because the writers ended up striking. So budget, also another reason is budget issues and low ratings, and those were the main reasons that the 4400 would be canceled and not return for a 5th season, despite the fourth season's cliffhanger. Despite all of that, it still unfortunately was canceled. Now, one of the main reasons, I should say, for why I picked this as a Flashback Friday is because in 2018, the CW announced that a reboot was actually in development. Taylor Elmore and Craig Sweeney, who worked on the original, would write and serve as executive producers for the reboot. In 2019, it was reported that the development of the pilot still needed to be finished. 2021 saw the CW order the show for the fall 2021 season, which means we should be able to see it by the time September rolls around, or maybe a little later, not that much later. But they ordered the show for a fall 2021 season. Co-executive producer Ariana Jackson and Anna Frick would serve as showrunners. March 2021 announced several series regulars, and I hope I don't mispronounce any of these names: Joseph David Jones, Kalia Johnson, Brittany Adbemola, Jay Ladymore, Amar Wooten, T.L. Thompson, Corey Tacoma, Iran Roach, Derek A. King, and Autumn Best. According to Deadline, the description of the series is as follows. Over the last century, at least 4,400 people who were often overlooked, undervalued, or otherwise marginalized vanished without a trace off the face of the planet. Last night, and inexplicably, they were all returned in an instant in Detroit, Michigan, having not aged a day and with no memory of what happened to them. Very, very much like the original series, the reboot will follow the government who tried to understand the phenomenon of the 4400s returned. It will also follow several returnees who have inexplicable powers. Some notable changes just from the description of the series is instead of Seattle, Washington, near Mount Rainier, the city will be actually Detroit, Michigan. And instead of 50 years, people could have been abducted in the last century. A character description for Amar Wooten's character, Hayden, disappears sometime in the 1930s from an institution. Another character description for J. Ladymore, as I try to squish the names together, sorry. J. Ladymore's character, Claudette, is another who disappeared sometime in the 1950s during the Civil Rights Movement. Actually, on a side note, I think we saw J. Ladymore's character, Claudette's sort of character trailer. It was recently released. I don't remember now, but I do remember seeing something. So while the reboot shares its foundation with the original series, it is set for the 21st century. The 4400 had a unique premise and in some cases relatable characters. When the 4400 was canceled in 2007, fans of the science fiction show sent nearly 6,000 bags of sunflower seeds to the company. This was to protest the cancellation of the show. The inspiration behind the 6,000 bags of sunflower seeds? Jeffrey Combs' character, Dr. Kevin Burkhoff, who was always chowing down on the salty snacks. I personally was also actually upset of the cancellation simply because of the cliffhanger. I would have liked a resolution for a lot of the characters, a lot of the things that they were trying to do when season 4 ended. So I rate the 4400 3.2 out of 5. While the show has not aged as considerably as the other series we have covered for the Flashback Fridays. I think the big issue I had with the show was the introduction of so many 4400 characters and all of their issues and situations, but having almost zero resolution or closure for any of them. Or I should say specifically, a very few of them. But what I did like is that the gifts that they were given to the 4400 had a sort of ripple effect into the community that could either change society, the future, or even bring people together for a common goal. That was a really, really nice sort of cause and effect for the 4400. The effect having their abilities in trying to clean up a city, and the effect being that the community started to rally together. There was actually an entire episode centered around that, and I really liked that, what they were trying to do with it. The plot twists were quite good, as I've mentioned. I really wish they didn't end on a cliffhanger because we're not getting no season 5, but oh well. The moral obligations of new medicine and technology actually were really, really thought out and seemingly explored well. I think another prime issue I had with the show, especially watching it later, like recently, is that the writing was actually kind of subpar, and sometimes even the acting was a tad cringeworthy. Once again, the show was made primarily in 2004, but I don't think this excuses at the very least the writing, because there were a lot of great shows that came out in 2004. And I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm watching this now with a bit of a bias comparatively to when I first watched it, when I had no biases. So, what are your thoughts? Are you excited for the reboot or worried? Did you like the original, or did you have maybe similar issues that I had with the show? As of right now, as of like June 17th, I might have to recheck that. You can watch the 4400 on Netflix, and I think I'm editing it there. Please consider following me on Twitter or supporting these podcasts on Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, or right here on Anchor. And until next time, bye.